what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products?
Based on my research of existing psychological thrillers and horror films, I looked into the way in which they use all typical conventions which most audiences are very familiar with. For example, I was fascinated by the construction of the horror psychological film Shrooms. Similar to my film, Shrooms uses a lot of mind games and you are left wondering throughout the film who the murderer actually is. Although right at the end Shrooms reveals the murderer to the audience and they are no longer kept guessing, although I decided to challenge this idea and although some people disagree and I did not like the cliffhanger ending, I decided it would be challenging for this kind of genre to open.
In what ways does your media forms and conventions of real media products?
Based on my research of existing psychological thrillers and horror films, I looked into the way in which they use all of the typical conventions which most audiences are very familiar with. For example, I was fascinated by the construction of the horror psychological film Shrooms. Similar to my film, Shrooms uses a lot of mind games and you are left guessing throughout. Although throughout the film the murderer is revealed, we decided to challenge this idea, and although some people disagree and do not like the cliffhanger endings, I decided it would be challenging for this kind of genre to open-ended guess and who the murderer is. I do realise we actually found out when questioning our target audience that the majority of people said this would be a refreshing change for this genre of film. We chose to have all of the murderers in black and white as we felt this was really effective and was sticking to the conventions of existing psychological thrillers. We developed some of the conventions by actually using a play recorder in our film for the use of the flashbacks in order for it to seem if someone knew it was happening and was recording it. We really felt this was something different and not used at all in this particular genre. All of the research that I made dramatically affected my final film as I learnt a lot about what worked and what didn't work for this kind of genre, and by analysing the conventions actually allowed me to develop some of those ideas and to in some stages challenge these conventions by doing something different.
How effective is your main product and ancillary text?
I believe that my main product is a very good representation of existing psychological thrillers. I do realise that by leaving the open-ended ending may not agree with everyone. However, myself and my team felt that it would show our skills of actually being able to recognise the typical conventions used in existing products, but to actually then be able to challenge these ideas and bring something new to the genre. I really feel that we have succeeded in this, and our feedback from our audience were really taken by the techniques we use, such as involving a camcorder to look as if the murderers were being filmed. The way in which I used my anchoring text, which were a film poster and magazine review, was sticking to the idea of the murderer being completely unknown and having three protagonists as a central image of my poster, with the back to the audience that it could be anyone. I ensured I included all of the conventions of existing film posters such as DVD sign, Blu-ray and the age certificate, as this ensured my poster looked as professional as possible. I also included a little background of the actresses of the film, recognising their achievements. I also included a slogan which was to keep your friends close but your enemies closer, as this is a typical convention for this kind of product. For my magazine review, I kept the house style of ensuring the central image showed no identity to any of the characters within my film. Therefore I used a large central image of myself where you can simply see my shadow, as I felt this again instantly likely to be unknown. I kept the usual conventions of a typical review by not having too much text, as this automatically puts the audience off and they do not want to read it all. So therefore, setting it out like I have actually deceives the audience, as there is actually quite a lot of text. In both of my anchoring texts I used dark, dingy colours in order to reflect the genre of the film. Overall, I believe that both my main product and my anchoring text work extremely well together and complement each other in order for my whole product to look as professional as possible. Oh no, ain't it the feedback one?
What have you learned from your audience feedback?
I got 2 people from my class to look at my advanced portfolio and give me some critical feedback on what was good about my film and what could actually be improved if I was to do this task again. Lorna Stephen was the first person I questioned to analyse what he thinks of my film. I thought the film was extremely creative and the use of psychological element was really effective and interesting. I also asked a fellow member of my class, Carl Swift. He said, I thought the film was really well put together, excellent camera work throughout the film. I felt the storyline was really creative and kept me guessing throughout, which is a really good trait within this genre. Having this feedback allowed me to review my film in a slightly different way, as I could not only judge it by my own opinions, but to actually take in what was being said by my peers and to analyse what could be improved in my film if I was to do it again. This exercise also allowed me to see which things I could improve upon if I were to do the task again, and it also made me feel like I was being given some praise for my hard work, as it allowed me to see which features within the film worked really well and which people found most interesting.
How did you use new media technologies in the construction, research and planning and evaluation stages?
I used new media technologies such as a video camera, Final Cut to construct my final film. The step from my AS project to my film was huge, and although it was challenging, I felt that I learnt this very quickly and I felt comfortable with Final Cut and I felt a good effort. Through doing a draft of our film and getting criticism and vital feedback from my peers and teachers allowed us to reshoot parts of our film in order to ensure we had a much stronger and successful final film. Through the research stages of my film, I used new media technologies such as the internet to gain a wider knowledge of existing psychological thrillers by locking into the typical conventions and later on using existing film posters and reviews to help with the creation of my own additional products for Anonymous. From using video cameras and Final Cut to produce my film was really interesting and a real learning curve, as it not only allowed me to be a consumer, but now I was actually becoming a producer and director of a film. Therefore, it really gave me an insight into the ever-growing industry and question whether it was something I would be interested in further in the future.